We're back with an ITEAM investigation. Water, it is a precious resource, and it has also become one of the most profitable. Companies are making billions of dollars selling bottled water.
In Connecticut, there's an intense fight to stop Niagara. That's a California-based company from pumping water from town reservoirs and building a bottling plant. Connecticut's not the first state to see a water war. It's been going on all over the United States for a while. In Maine, the battle to stop a water company made its way all the way to the Supreme Court.
Channel 3's Susan Raff traveled to that little town in Maine to see what we could expect here in Connecticut.
Fryeburg, Maine, a small town. Only about 3,500 people live there. By all accounts, it's a quaint Maine town, except for the battle waged between a big water company and those trying to block what some call profiting from a natural resource. Just last week, opponents were dealt a blow when the High Court ruled against their appeal. But years of legal wrangling has left a bad taste. Store shelves are stocked with lots of bottled water. It's become the new trend, a healthy alternative to soda. Companies like Nestle, which owns Poland Spring, are making millions.
Who does own the water? That's a moral conundrum that we really need to look at now because the future is uncertain.
Nikki Sequeira lives in Fryeburg, Maine, where Poland Spring is pumping out more than 100 million gallons a year. She is a strong opponent of public water for profit. She's also a member of the town's water district, but feels the district has little control because of a deal that was made. A deal that could last for decades.
This 45-year contract, which they're touting to the public as a 25-year contract, for instance, it's really a 45-year contract.
Nestle tells us that after 20 years, they can extend for another 25 more. Bruce Taylor worries about the future.
I think that it's very hard to fight because they have all the resources, all the lawyers.
There's another concern that people in Maine have about all of this pumping, and that is surface water. Take Round Pond. It used to be a very popular spot for swimming, but now the water levels have gone way down.
We've been monitoring ponds, and all that data is fully public and available for over a decade. This feature would have been around for 10,000 years.
Mark Dubois is the natural resource manager for Nestle, which owns Poland Spring. He says Round Pond is hard to monitor because people disturb the pond and the monitoring equipment.
We add jobs, add value to the rural economy in Maine.
He says the company's bottling plant employs about 800 people. Although Nestle doesn't pay taxpayers for their water, they do pay the Fryeburg Water Company for what they take.
We've been able to keep costs down for our ratepayers because of the subsidized monies that we received from Poland Springs.
Gene Andrews says corporate money has also helped make improvements to their infrastructure. And some who get the water favor the deal.
We pay very little for some of the best water in the world.
At the time this started, there weren't many ground rules. Now there are. The state of Maine regulates how much water is withdrawn. Plus, Nestle is required to have permits on what they take out and transport. But the Fryeburg Water Company is completely private, and some in town have a problem with two private companies making a deal with public water.
We're fighting Nestle in Pennsylvania and California, whereas there's a drought in Oregon and a lot in the global south. So this is not just an issue that's going down in Maine, it's an issue that's going down in the United States.
Closer to home, construction has already started on a bottling plant in Bloomfield. Niagara, a California-based company, plans to take out and bottle about 2 million gallons a day from the MDC's reservoir system, much of it coming from Barkhamsted and Nepog. A dozen towns depend on that supply. A bill that would have required a state permit failed this year in the legislature.
This particular region right now has an abundance of water, which is great, but there's no end for this contract with Niagara.
In places like Georgia, water levels have gotten so low, there was a drought. People had to cut back, but companies were allowed to keep pumping. Nestle says that issue has been addressed in Maine.
If there was a drought or if there was some kind of problem, you would stop.
Correct. We have to. It's in the contract.
Here in our state, water is being taken from reservoirs, and the MDC says rain helps replenish it. But drought is a concern, and in fact, Wednesday night, the MDC is having a meeting at their Hartford headquarters to talk about it. It's important that people understand what's happening and address some of these concerns. With the ITEAM, Susan Raff, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.